Teachers here in the U.S. desperately want to spend time in their classrooms addressing the climate crisis, according to a survey by the EdWeek Research Center. In fact, 80% of U.S. educators in the survey say it's important to teach students about what some scientists describe as an existential threat to our way of life. But 1 in 4 teachers at all grade levels say they don't teach about climate change at all. Their reason? They don't feel supported by administrators, or they just don't have the resources. I talked to a climate activist who's pushing for more environmental education in schools. Meet Sage Lenier. I met Sage at the Clinton Global Initiative meeting in New York, which acts as an incubator for innovation and new ideas from global leaders to address the world's most pressing challenges. Sage graduated from the University of California, Berkeley, where she created and taught her own program in college entitled Solutions for a Sustainable and Just Future. It's the same name as her nonprofit, which aims to make solutions-oriented environmental education more accessible. Sage, what I love about you is you're a student turned teacher, which is pretty remarkable. It doesn't happen every day. So take us on that journey. And when did you start thinking, I don't like this, I don't like what they're teaching us, I'm going to take control?
Well, Berkeley has a program that enables students to teach to their peers. It's called DECAL, Democratic Education at Cal. Most people actually don't know what the acronym means. But so there already is an existing infrastructure. You can make them playful. They can be about Harry Potter, but they could also be very structured and educational. So I always thought that's something that I would want to do. But I was just, very, very disappointed in the education I was getting and how, if we were, in an urban planning class, we might spend 14 weeks talking about the problem and then toss in the solution at the end. And on an emotional level, and also for our depth of understanding, to be prepared to actually implement and understand solutions, that just isn't the approach that's working. And I realize the environmental movement is so small, and it needs to be everyone, and it can't be unless we have that baseline environmental education. I think more and more so, we're entering into a place where maybe not our education system, but our social media is more talking about feminism and racial justice and those kinds of things. And people now have a baseline understanding of those things, but we're still not there with the environment. And it affects all those topics are very intertwined. So I would like to see that next era of everyone has a baseline understanding of the supply chain and the food system and how our lives interplay with those systems.
It's interesting. I think a lot of people think, well, I'm going to take these aluminum cans and recycle, or I'm going to do the newspapers and recycle, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
They don't think, okay, I'm going to come up with curriculum. I'm going to go do this and that. But the fact of the matter is we all can move the needle, and you're a clear example of that. But, most people don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to move the needle. What was it that inspired you to do that?
Well, I think that is such a great point, is that the majority of people are doing what they can with the information they have. People only know about recycling. They only know about electric cars. We're not being given a good enough baseline understanding of things to make informed decisions. Because the most important things that you can do as an individual or in your career are not recycling or electric cars. But if you're not equipped with the knowledge and tools you need, how can we push? So, one stat that I'm always citing, always trying to get people to pay attention to, is that 45 to 60% of global greenhouse gas emissions are associated with the production of household goods. That means that, for one, there is a great deal of personal responsibility in solving climate change. And for two, it means we're going to have to move away from a consumer supply chain where we're extracting resources from nature and turning them into things, selling them, and then starting that whole system all over again, landfilling. And so, envisioning a low resource, low carbon economy is so radical for the current system. But that's where we need to go.
In 2023, Sage was named by Time magazine as one of 10 next generation leaders. The environmental curriculum she's advocating covers a wide range of issues related to climate, including decarbonization, food systems, and environmental justice. So curriculum, though, building a curriculum, it's one thing to say I'm going to do it. It's another to actually do it. It doesn't seem like it'd be easy. What were some of the stumbles along the way? How tough was it? And now, what's kind of the payoff, seeing that it's out there now?
If I could personally handwrite an apology letter to my first 25 students, I would. It was not good at first. I came in with a lot of 19-year-old audacity, and then I had to learn, right? And so the process of building it, I actually ended up doing an interdisciplinary major at Cal because I could not find enough information. So I did an ID major and kind of went to all the different colleges in the university. I took a couple engineering classes. I took one engineering class, but I was in the business school, urban planning. I took food systems courses because I just felt like there wasn't a centralized understanding of all these things. And I would kind of I also do a lot of independent research. I was heavily reliant on heavily inspired by Project Drawdown and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation with their visions for what a sustainable future could look like. And those ended up getting incorporated a little bit in. Now that it's out in the world, I can't even take credit for the majority of the students that have gone through that program now because I'm not at Cal and I have a team of amazing young women who are teaching it. And I am eternally grateful to all of the people who have made it possible on our team. So the vision now, the payoff is, one of the commitments, or the commitment that we're making with CGI is to be in a minimum of 30 universities by the end of 2025. And that can look two different ways. Either we are doing the youth-led route and working with students to set up an infrastructure at their universities, or we're working with educators to do a kind of either their first environmental program, because a lot just still don't have one, and they recognize the needs of sometimes professors or even high school teachers are reaching out to us, or we're pushing them to have this more solutions-oriented, action-focused lens on an existing environmental curriculum that's more about raising awareness and that. But yeah, the other arm of our organization is going to be media production, because I would like to be able to reach more people than just the couple thousand that we can at a university level.
But it's interesting because obviously we're in different age brackets, and it seems like the people in my age bracket, it gets at the kind of this attitude that older generation has of doom, gloom, which you were talking about. Yeah, you can talk about the problem, but let's talk about solutions. And I think generally that's the difference, right? That's kind of the disconnect, is that all we hear is just kind of doom and gloom. It's tough to pull the covers over your head and actually go out and attack the day if that's what you're being spoon-fed. And from a younger person's point of view, that had to be tough to listen to. And I think that's one of the reasons you wanted to frame this differently, right?
Yeah. For me, I definitely am just a very action-oriented person. I wasn't really interested in sitting there and sitting in the anxiety of it and understanding how bad the problem was. If we're being told that there's as of right now, we are headed for complete ecological collapse. That's what the fossil fuel industry and all of their partners are planning on. And it's either I think the doom and gloom mentality, the narrative, pushes people into apathy and kind of ignorance is bliss, or last hurrah. And so a lot of people are choosing to just tune it out and let it all happen. And if we don't shift the narrative, then they win. And obviously vulnerable people are going to suffer the most with that.
Sage was inspired by Greta Thunberg, a Swedish climate activist who in 2018 gained worldwide attention for challenging world leaders to move quickly to address climate change. Sage started her career as an educator by collaborating with other young leaders. When it comes to climate change, younger generations, millennials and Generation Z, express more anxiety about their future. But they're also more active than their older counterparts when it comes to activism around the issue of climate change. That's according to a 2021 survey by the Pew Research Center. So, how would you describe, before you started on your path, how would you describe things for young people? Was it just a discouraging kind of dystopia future? And are you far more optimistic now? Because, I guess in some respects, there's more and more sages. There's more and more people taking control of the narrative and trying to push us in a different direction.
It is really interesting because this movement is so new. A lot of us got our start in 2018 or 2019, and even if we didn't know each other at the time, I'm meeting the people who were here in New York organizing and, working with Greta or working with the UN at this point, and they've been doing it, and we all started the same year without knowing each other. And I remember, around the time we each got our start, it was so alarming to just be in, your daily life and just still being talked to by your educators and by your community as though your future was going to look like theirs. And for me, realizing that the food system was going to collapse and we were losing seasons and we weren't going to have stable, I was just immensely panicked. And I think that was and very, very angry. I think that's where all of this came from, was a place of rage. And I had to have this very humbling moment, this very humbling transition from burn it all down to envisioning something more sustainable and more equitable. And that realization, I think, was the pivot for me to move into education, was realizing you can't just hate the system, you have to want something better.
When I was 19, I don't even want to tell you what I was doing at that age. I clearly wasn't out to change the world. And you're a young woman sitting here across from me here. You're talking about going to the UN, but it's just, you're kind of just dropping it like it's a typical day of grocery shopping or going out with friends and stuff. How weird is this for you?
It is weird. And it is weird because I wasn't necessarily on a path of success. I grew up low income and in an underserved community, and I actually temporarily dropped out of high school. And that was only 8 years ago. And that's so weird to be sitting here now. But I think there's a certain level of humility you have to bring with it if you are, if you were being invited to the UN or if you are in these rooms. You have to simply take it for what it is and okay, thank you, we're getting more resources. Awesome, we're getting more tools. Great, we have a bigger network. But the focus is still on the work. It's not about accolades or accomplishments. So it is very validating to finally have the resources that we need to pull off our mission, and we're excited for this next. This really, after this week, nothing will be the same for me or for my organization, and we're very excited about it. This is a huge transformative moment. But I do think the humility has to come from dedication to the work, and so that all of this big shiny stuff doesn't go to your head. This is why I do what I do. So this course, I came to impact, several hundred Cal students.
Courses are not only to teach students to reduce individual impacts on environment, but also about climate as a social revolution. I was listening to former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton talking today, and she said, if you want to get there fast, go alone. If you want to get there far, go together. You started out fast. It sounds like now your path is far. So give us your far-reaching view of, I know you're talking about media production. It's reaching as many people as possible. And then what does that look like in your view? I mean, does that mean that there are more and more sages out there, spearheading, getting out there, charging? What does it look like?
That's actually, I think, my superpower is that everyone I touch turns into an activist. I am really good at just taking people and finding what they're passionate about and then bringing that out and turning that into something that also ties in their skill set. So if you're a software engineer, I can just have a conversation. I can have a 30-minute conversation with someone, and then they'll be like, maybe I will look into how urban planning can apply to software engineering. And I'm like, yeah. What it looks like, my overarching goal is to just get environmental solutions into household conversations, and whatever it takes, whether that's media production, working with educators, working with cities or states on environmental education requirements. I do think that should be a thing. I think environmental education is a right, not a privilege. And whatever it takes, I will do to make sure that this becomes such a popular conversation and just so baseline that you can't live without understanding environmental solutions.
I'm going to ask one final question. I hope you'll indulge me. You start out here, this is the curriculum, this is my baby. But now, as you said, there's others kind of taking that mantle. You're here kind of in the spotlight, and you told me before the interview, travel coming up the next few months are probably going to be dizzying. You're getting further from this. Does that feel weird to, this is your baby, but in order to be the face and to move it along, you can't be here in the classroom doing it. Is that a tough transition to make?
Yeah, I got to give a lecture earlier this year. I just so happened to be in Berkeley, and my whole team was sick at the same time. And I wanted to live in that moment forever. It's so gorgeous to be there. But I think also there's a good reminder for myself always that education isn't the work. We're pushing people to the work, but education doesn't actually change anything, right? We're trying to give people the resources, the tools, the knowledge, connections that they need in order to become passionate change makers and feel like they can go out in the world with this vision for what a better future could look like, the 1, 2, 3. But my work is in empowering people to do the work. And that's humbling because I think it comes with a certain amount of grounding and respect for those who are out there, working on regenerative agriculture systems and whatnot, because I'm not. So when I'm out and I'm doing this now next step, one level removed, another level removed, it's a reminder to keep coming back. And as I've been climbing into this space, I have a ton of friends around me who are indigenous activists or racial justice rights activists, etc., who I'm just oh, are you invited to this? Come. Are you not invited to that? I'm getting you on the list. So I'm trying to lift as I climb to make sure that the people who are closer in proximity to the work are getting the same resources.
Well, whoever's down here, you're lifting like crazy, so they better be ready. Sage, such a delight talking to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.